John Felt here, and this is the weekly weather briefing, July 14th, 2019. When we look at the current situation, one of the big weather stories this week and over the last number of days has been Tropical Storm Barry. It was briefly a hurricane, and it was around 70 miles per hour as it moved onshore. And currently it's a tropical storm as of Sunday morning, probably get downgraded to a tropical depression soon. The maximum sustained winds are 40 miles an hour, moving to the north at about 9 miles an hour. Lots of rain being transported northward here. You can see that rain sort of going right along the Mississippi River. It's already as far north as a good part of Arkansas and northern Mississippi, even parts of western Kentucky. As far as the forecast rainfall from Barry, looks like fairly widespread 2 to 4 inches, but some core rainfall above 6 inches here. And it looks like the axis is right along the Mississippi River. Now with Barry, it looks like there's going to be a high risk of flash flooding over the next couple days. Moderate to high risk, again right along the Mississippi River, then extending up towards the Ohio River basin as we get into early in the week. Now rainfall over the last week, really not a whole lot. Sort of a quiet summer pattern over much of the nation. A couple spots in the upper Midwest. This is associated with jet energy. And then over the Gulf Coast, North Gulf Coast, with Tropical Storm Barry as it moved across that area. And you can see amounts along the Gulf Coast, pretty soaking rainfall, 2 to 4 inches of rain, and then much higher. Matter of fact, in spots here I can see a little white dot that's indicating close to 20 inches of rain. So I saw that New Orleans have their pumping stations going full blast, trying to get that water out of low-lying areas. They had 11 pumps going in one pumping station. Now I want to show you the moisture here with the tropical system. In many ways it's different than a regular weather system. The dew point's 81, 78 to 81. That's a tremendously high dew point, and this is at the lowest levels of the atmosphere. We look at tropical moisture, we also look at the higher levels, and this is precipitable water. Green is twice normal, and I see a couple dots of blue. That's 4 times the normal. So tropical systems pick up that warm, moist water from the Gulf of Mexico, and it's transporting that northward, and it's very deep-seated. It goes through the entire atmosphere, and that's why we get such heavy rain, efficient rain from a tropical system once it moves inland. Here are temperatures over the last week. I think as we look at it next weekend, we're going to see much hotter readings in many areas. Now, as far as the trend of soil moisture, especially over the upper Midwest where we've had a very active spring and summer so far, flood season, we're trending back to normal in many spots, especially over the upper Mississippi. Matter of fact, we're even getting some dry spots here in a few areas. On the Missouri, we still have some very wet soils in parts of South Dakota and Nebraska, so there's a vulnerability there. But for the most part, this is pretty ideal for agriculture right now with just modestly above normal soil moisture. Now, let's hope we get some replenishment. About a ½ inch to an inch a week is really what we need to keep those crops in good condition. But overall, not too bad now. We don't have an excess and we don't have a deficit yet, so let's sort of hope we keep it there. Now, where the heaviest rain's going to be moving across, generally speaking, soils are in sort of a neutral condition. I wouldn't say this is excessively wet where the heaviest rain will be moving from Barry. As far as rivers go, likewise, we look at where it's moving northward along the tributaries, generally near to a bit above normal, but not as high as areas in blue. Okay, so let's get into the forecast here. I see 3 factors that are going to shape our weather, probably for the next 2 weeks. The first one is an area of high pressure, a ridge of high pressure, and that's really going to be the overall biggest weather factor or feature that we're going to be seeing over the next week or 2. And that means hot and dry weather. We're going to have oppressive heat over many parts of the nation this week. So that's weather story number 1. Weather story number 2 is Tropical Storm Barry. I showed the track. It's going to drift up to the north. Weather story 3 is the jet stream, and that's a summertime type pattern where the jet streams well up to the north. That's probably where we'll get some thunderstorms, perhaps a chance of severe weather throughout the week. So when we look at the jet stream over the next 2 weeks, what do we see? Well, there's your ridge of high pressure, and what it does is with time, this is generally week 2, it drifts off to the west. That means the hottest temperatures will probably also start to drift off to the west, and we'll have a jet stream that digs in this region. So by the end of the second week, we have a pattern that looks like this. So this is going to most likely bring a refreshingly more normal, or maybe even a little bit below normal temperatures, and some drier air. Great Lakes, Northeast U.S., Mid-Atlantic, Ohio River Valley. On the other hand, this high pressure here pushes off here, and we're going to still have very high heat over the western part of the U.S. And I think we should be able to see that in temperature. We see a couple things here. We see, as we start the forecast period, we see the right in here, that's Barry, clouds and rain. And then as we get in towards the very end of the forecast period, but generally 10 to 14 days, 8 to 14 days out, we get that pattern with the hot weather in this region and cooler weather over the middle part and the eastern U.S. So we get a dividing line. Now this week, like I said, we're going to be talking the news stories. I think we're going to be hearing about 2 news stories, Barry impacts, and the second one will be really high heat and humidity, and you can see the high heat and humidity here. Matter of fact, if you look at some of the humidity here, that precipitable water, it starts off here, and then you can sort of see it just sort of pulls up in this region and zips off to the east. But that lingering moisture here from Barry is going to make it very oppressive, the heat index readings. As far as precipitation goes, here's the outlook. Here's your jet stream energy. It's causing thunderstorms over the upper Midwest, northern plains. And here's your track of rainfall with Barry as it moves up to the north. Everywhere else, a pretty quiet week. I wanted to show you in perspective of the river basin where the heaviest rain. This is the lower Mississippi River basin, so it looks like most of it's falling over there, a little bit in the Ohio. Once again, dangerous heat. Look at this. This is on Thursday. The purple shades here are heat indices between 105 and 110. And actually, that's even a little bit more. So that tropical moisture is pushing up, combining with heat, and we're getting really some pretty oppressive conditions developing mid to late week. 6 to 10 day still has the high heat. I'm not sure if this is picking that cool spell out yet, so let's hold off on this. I think this might be some cooler air in here, but let's just wait and see on that. Overall, I don't see anything for the next 2 weeks, anything real significant as far as precipitation goes. Now, as far as your weather risk hazard assessment, lots of flood warnings, flash flood warnings with Barry. This week, as far as severe storms, upper jet stream, slight chances. That's very typical for this time of year. And then at least today, maybe tomorrow, we get some very small rotation with a tropical storm when it moves in, so we can get some isolated, very small tornadoes, usually weak. And then today and tomorrow in particular, pretty good risk, medium to high risk of excessive rainfall. And as far as 3 to 7 and 8 to 14 day, I want to point out that high heat, 17th through the 22nd, very high heat and humidity and heavy rain. So as far as the takeaway go, as I mentioned, looks like the alerts are for Tropical Storm Barry as it moves north with a flood threat and then oppressive heat over the central part of the U.S. Hope you have a nice week. Try to stay cool. I'll be talking with you again next weekend. Take care.